I'm really satisfied with what I have accomplished within this whole 6 weeks, even though there's difficulties and success in between. I've accomplished to make 3 pieces in total, which was an entire garment. One is the pants, which is the trousers, and one is the top, the inner top, and one is the outer top. Within my proposal, I have stated a few characteristics on how I would like my outcome to be possibly like. For example, being interactive is one of the main things that I would like my garment to be like, because when you're deciding something, it's an action, and I would like to experience that action. I would like to see the action within the wearer on how they wear the garment. So that is something what I really expect to create within my final outcome, which I believe that I did it. Also, giving the wearer the choice to pick which to wear or which not to wear. So this is my final piece, where this is the top, which is the inner piece. This one is the sleeve, where there's about 3 layers of sleeve, as you can see. And the wearer they are allowed to choose either this one, like for example, you can put your hand into this one and wear the sleeve, or you could choose the second one, which is this one. You could choose to wear, so you have 2 sleeves that you're wearing, or you could possibly say you're wearing another sleeve. And the last one would be the smaller sleeve, where you can choose to pick this one, where you're wearing 3 sleeves. And for this part, which was another interactive part where you have to pull, and it would move according to how you pull it, like that. You can't really see it now, but it actually moved, and it was inspired by a form of domino effect, which was how I got inspired by the way we think, in a way that one decision leads to another. So being a domino effect overlaps on each other, which really relates to how I want it to portray within my garment. And this one is the outer top piece, where there's about 3 layers, where you can choose which one you want to wear. And within this inner piece, there's also layers of sleeves. As you can see, that's a lot of layers in it, which I found quite difficult to sew, because it's quite confusing sometimes which to sew onto. If you sew this one onto this without thinking, you might sew to a different one, which doesn't make the sleeve work as I want it to be. It's the same effect. You can put your hand through this one, or this one, or this one, and one more here as well. And lastly is the trousers, where it has the same concept of having this layer trouser sleeve, where you can put your legs whether you want it here, or you can put it here, or here, or here. And all these techniques that I use to create this whole garment really affects on how I choose and how the effect I want it to be like. And the process of making this garment allows me to experience my theme itself, because while I was making, it requires a lot of decision making, choice making, and it also affects on how the outcome would be like if I would choose this one. It could be right or wrong, and it will affect on how my outcome would be like. So I think this whole experience of making this whole garment really is satisfying, and it helps me to understand how we make choices on an everyday basis. During this whole 6 weeks of my personal project, within the process of creating this final garment, I got to learn many different techniques when I was experimenting in response to my visual images on my research as well. And this one I learned casting as well. It was my first time, which wasn't as successful as I wanted to respond to my project. However, it sort of creates a layer, but it was interesting to learn how to do casting and also having the influence of fabric and casting together. And also I got to learn on an experiment different ways of pattern cutting instead of using the normal pattern cutting you would see to use to make a garment. I created it in a more abstract way in terms of using my experimentations of this social experiment that I did. It was based on what influenced your decision on how you make a choice, and this was a few words, like for example, your personal liking. Maybe you base that on how you choose, and I would take these shapes and form it and cut it out into a bigger version and create it into a pattern that I use it for my top piece, which was quite abstract, but I had to alter it in so that it would fit on the body as well, but still having that influence of this experiment that I did where I got the shape. And these are some of my sketchbook pages that I wanted to show you in terms of how I got this idea of layering clothing and draping using my own clothing, which was really interesting how the shape would be like. And this is some of the sketches that I did, observational drawings in terms of loose drawings, and also more drawings. And this is some sketches that I did, which was, I found it quite really successful in terms of the outline and the dark outline that you can see, and I chose to draw the darker outlines in which areas. And during this project, I also did found some difficulties in terms of creating the garment, and also thinking ways of how I would structure the items that I want it to be. For example, like the domino item that I made that folds up and down. Initially, I found it really hard, but I got to have a discussion with the technician, and we got to figure it out together by experimenting, trial and error, and finally we got to the point where it shows how I wanted it to look like, which I got the help of the image of this window blind, which creates the same effect where you can turn up, down, which was really interesting for me. In terms of getting feedback and tutorials, I like to ask my friends and peers that are around me, because they give me like honest opinions on how I could change, or does it look aesthetically nice, or does it reflect on how my theme is, because it really gives me a good suggestion on how I could improve or how I could change my way of working. And in terms of tutorials, I think I got at least one tutorial each week, because I like to finish in a certain amount of work before I ask a tutorial, so that there's enough information for them to assess on how I am progressing within my project. And I do like to have tutorials when I'm a bit stuck with where I am. For example, I did get stuck with this project in the middle where I couldn't find visual research, or I couldn't think of what I could put in my visual research to respond and get shapes from. But I did have tutorial with John, and he did give me with a lot of ways I could experiment with shapes, and which was really helpful. If I were to change anything about my final garment, would be the materials I use, which would be the fabric. I would like to use sustainable fabric in the future if I do to remake this garment, which I found CSM which was the paper bonded onto organic denim fabric and using organic cottons instead of the cottons that I'm using now. And yeah, I wanted to create a sustainable garment. However, I did not manage to because the fabrics that were shown in CSM were quite pricey, and also they were sold in the US, so it was a bit of a difficulty for me to get them. So I decided to use the normal fabrics for now, and maybe in the future I could use the sustainable fabrics. And lastly, it's about the publication. Using InDesign is somehow a bit complicated, but with a few tutorials online and with the technician help, I was able to create a neat and clean finish to how I would like to present my work and my images. And also the photo shoot, I did have some difficulties in terms of capturing the background that I wanted. However, I did manage to try with different angles, different position with the model, and I managed to get some great shots that is shown in the moving image. Overall, this whole 6 weeks was really intense. However, I really enjoyed making my final comment, and also the process of this research, and also the self-initiate theme that I've created, because it really helps me understand my wonders that I've been thinking about on why we make decisions, on how the effect is like when we pick something different. And also I think this project really helps me, or really prepares me for my further course, which is fashion design and marketing as a BA course. And that's why the publication is something really important. It's how I would like to present my fashion design, and how it relates to the audience, and also how the audience would sort of present the clothing and how they would wear it. So I really think this garment reflects on my course as well.